Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted to be joined by Danny. We are still talking about the performance from Artur Beterbiev at Wembley Arena on Saturday night against Anthony Yarde. Fantastic fight. Beterbiev got the win in round 8. Danny, we've not caught up that much since the fight. Just let me know your general thoughts on the fight.
Yeah, it was a brilliant fight, wasn't it? As we spoke a bit earlier off camera, didn't think Anthony Yarde would do as well as he did. I don't think it was a case of Beterbiev having lost too much. I just think Yarde, boxed as well as he possibly could have and gave a really good account of himself. But obviously, it ultimately ended the way all Beterbiev fights do. But no, it was a great fight, really was.
Yeah, I mean, not had a bad start to the year, have we? With Eubank Junior Smith last week and Lee Wood, Mauricio Lara coming up in a couple of weeks. So yeah, we're not doing too badly. Can't complain too much. This is a video discussing basically, can anybody beat this guy? We've done these videos about I think Inoue and a couple of other fighters as well. But Beterbiev, 19-0 now, 19 knockouts. Yeah, there are some interesting fights that could happen in the next year or so. Just keen to get your opinion on them, Danny. First fighter we're going to look at is Callum Smith. According to Eddie Hearn, this fight looks like it's happening next. Callum Smith, 32 years old now, only has that one loss to Canelo. Punches very hard. I think he's only had 2 fights at light heavyweight, both ending in early KOs. What are your thoughts, general thoughts on this fight, Danny? Do you think it would be more competitive than last night, less competitive? Let us know.
Oh, tough question. It's another really, really good fight. Obviously, Callum Smith looked very, very good since moving up to light heavyweight, but big jump up in levels from Castillo and Boderlick up to Beterbiev. Hopefully, we do see it next. Would be great to have him back in the UK. It's hard to say it would be more competitive than last night, just because of how competitive last night was. It's a tricky one. I'm seeing a lot of people on Twitter saying they think Callum Smith would beat Beterbiev based on last night. I'm not sure I would jump that far myself, but I think you would have to make Beterbiev a favourite. But as has been mentioned pre and post fight a lot, he is 38. Eventually, he will start slowing down, but took some decent licks off Anthony Yarde last night, and I don't think he was ever really badly hurt. More just sent back in his heels and felt the power. So I would favour Beterbiev against Smith, but again, fantastic fight.
Yeah, okay. One down. Whilst we're here, going to ask you a question. As you mentioned, Beterbiev's just turned 38. How much longer do you think he's going to fight for? I know it's a tricky question, but I think on one hand, he's 38 years old. On the other hand, he's only had 19 fights. How much longer do you think we can expect Beterbiev to be around for?
It's tricky because, he's obviously looks so dominant at the minute, but the idea of a light heavyweight, the number one light heavyweight in the world being 40, just seems insane. He could obviously fight on for another 4 or 5 years, but he wouldn't be what he is now. Surely that's just impossible. So I think he'll probably just fight till he gets beat, to be honest.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty good way to go about things. He's not taken a lot of damage. I know he had loads and loads of amateur fights, but not as grueling as sort of professional wars can be. So I think he'll probably just fight till he gets beat, to be honest.
Yeah, quite possibly. We'll see. But no, I was a Beterbiev fan before Saturday night. I'm a bigger fan now, to be honest, regardless of who and where he's fighting. I'll be watching next time. You can possibly guess the next fight I'm going to bring up. 2 guys who hold all the world titles in the light heavyweight division. Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol. And as you know, Bivol had that fantastic win over Canelo last year. I'm not. 2 questions for you, Danny. First question is: do you think we'll see this fight? I think Bivol's might be fighting Canelo again in the rematch this year. Beterbiev obviously could be fighting Callum Smith. They both could possibly lose their next fight. Possibly, who knows? But yeah, which way are you sliding towards? Are you more of a Bivol guy or a Beterbiev guy? And yeah, do you think we'll ever actually see this fight?
You would hope we would see it at some point, realistically. I don't think we'll see it this year. which when you think about that, it's kind of sad because it probably means you'll not see them fight when they're both in their prime. In terms of who I would pick, up until probably the Ramirez fight, certainly the Canelo fight would have had an impact, but up until the Ramirez fight, I would have been fairly big in the Beterbiev corner, and I think most people would have. But I think you're starting to see people see it as a lot closer to a 50-50 fight. I was saying over the weekend, and I'll say it again now, if they were to fight now, I would favour Beterbiev, but in a year's time, like Beterbiev's got really, really good feet for a 38-year-old power puncher, but like that'll be one of the first things to go. And Bivol's footwork is streets ahead of anyone Beterbiev's faced so far. So the longer time goes on, the more you would have to favour Bivol, I think. But I think that's probably, if I could make one fight in boxing, that would be it. I would rather see that than Spence and Crawford, I think, and maybe a toss up between Fury Usyk. I think that's just. I mean, it's such a clear 1 and 2 in the division. There's no prospects that people are saying, oh, he could beat him, or, there's no like question marks over, sort of either of them. So I think that would be the fight to me, like, if I could see one.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one. I think a lot of people maybe will change their mind on this when Bivol next fights, they'll change their mind again. Who knows? I don't blame people for doing that because it's such a tricky fight to pick, and it's credit to you for doing so. A lot of people would have none of that, but I'll just repeat what you've said. Really hope we see it. I really hope we don't just kind of end up talking about it for years and years and and don't end up seeing it, because that can happen quite a lot in boxing. Cool. We're ripping through these. Final ish question I've got for you, Danny, is Beterbiev. Some people said that he looked a little bit gaunt at the press conference, maybe a bit gaunt at the weigh-in as well. It's just some people's opinions. Obviously, made weight within the limit. Do you think we will see Beterbiev fight at cruiserweight?
Oh, it's an interesting one. As I said in the weigh-in reaction video with Paul, I thought he did look worse than Yard at the weigh-in. Obviously, Beterbiev has been making 175 for a long time, and I don't know what he's in the ring at, but it must be over 190, you would think. I think he would do well up at cruiserweight. I don't think the current crop of cruiserweight champions are particularly strong if you compare them to the ones who were there during Usyk's era. So I think he would have a lot of success. But I just don't think there'd be big enough fights there to draw him up. I think the bigger fights are probably at light heavyweight. Like Beterbiev, Makabu, how big a fight's that? Beterbiev, not a massive fight. And then I suppose obviously you've got the British names there, but I think you're probably going to see more sort of in-house British fights. And I think if there were bigger names up at light cruiserweight, you would see him go up. But I don't think I think he would probably be happy enough to, put himself through the weight cut for the bigger fights at 175.
Yeah, I also just think that you have to keep on going back to Beterbiev's age. He's not got a long left. He's potentially only got 2 or 3 fights left. Yeah. Does he want to spend it going into a cruiserweight division when there's a high risk, low rewards? Quite possibly not. So I think I would love to see him maybe just have one fight at cruiserweight and say, look, I'm the best if he can get undisputed status at light heavyweight, he can say I'm the best at light heavyweight and I want to move up and I want to fight the best cruiserweight possible. I'd love for that to happen. Not saying it's going to, but yeah, I would love for that to happen personally. Yeah,
it'd be great. I know this is like getting into complete fantasy talk here, but if Usyk was to come back down the cruiserweight and Beterbiev, that would just be fantastic. But yeah, I suppose that would be the dream scenario, as you say, would probably be Smith next, undisputed with Bivol, and then up and fight whoever the consensus number 1 cruiserweight at the time is. But how likely that is, we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. I was having a conversation with somebody I was sitting next to at the fight last night who did mention if Beterbiev and Usyk were to mix, obviously they fought as amateurs. There is a rivalry there. I know Beterbiev was asked about Usyk in an interview in Fight Week and just kind of refused to answer any questions about him. And I just feel like Yeah, I'll repeat what you said. We're living in fantasy land, but I just feel like Beterbiev, Usyk at cruiserweight 2024. You never know. I'll get you never know. It is boxing at the end of the day. Look, we at one point we Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. was going to happen. So like
Yeah.
it's not impossible. We'll leave things there, Danny. Final question from me. Do you mentioned about Beterbiev beating Callum Smith, possibly beating Bivol as well. Therefore, do you think this guy's going to retire undefeated?
Oh, yeah, it all just depends on when the fights happen.
Yeah.
I'm not even 100% convinced we'll see the Bivol fight at any
Yeah.
stage. Like, I wouldn't want my life to depend on it. So with that in mind, I think there probably is a good chance he'll retire undefeated. That will be some record to retire with, like 20, 21-0, 21 knockouts. Crazy.
Yeah, we shall see. All right, Dan, we'll leave things there before I interrogate you too much. But yeah, good to get your thoughts on Artur Beterbiev. I think Callum Smith is a fantastic fight next. We'll see if it happens. But yeah, thank you for joining me.
No problem, mate.